with the cross of Jesus going on before. Christ the royal master leads against the foe. For into battle, see his banner go. Our Christian soldiers marching as to war, with the cross of Jesus going on before. At the sign of triumph, Satan's hosts are flee. Armed Christian soldiers unto victory. Hell's foundations quiver at the shower of praise. Brothers, lift your voices, loud your anthem praise. All Christian soldiers marching as to war, with the cross of Jesus going on before. Like a mighty army moves the church of God. Brothers, we are treading where the saints have trod. We are not divided, all one body we, one in hope and doctrine, one in charity. All Christian soldiers marching as to war, with the cross of Jesus going on before.
Hey guys, can you hear me? I apologize for that delay there. um, please type a 1 or say something in the server. I want to make sure that the audio is set up okay. Want to make sure that you can hear me. So, if you can hear me, do something. Please say something. Can you guys hear me? Can you hear me? Can you guys hear me? Okay. I think I had myself on mute. Can you hear me now? Should be coming through loud and clear. No audio whatsoever? Really? You cannot hear me. Can you hear me at all? Let's. Can you hear me now? Type a 1 if you can hear me, okay? Let's try this. Let me do something else here really quick. Really not set up for this, but can you guys hear me now through this audio? cannot hear me. This is really interesting. Cannot hear me at all whatsoever. My audio should be running. I tested it earlier today. Oh, come on. You guys should be able to hear me just fine. Really? You can't hear me at all? Really? You can't hear me at all? Hold on a second, guys, really quick. Hold on a second. Is this any better, guys? At all? You can hear me better now? Can you hear me still? You can still hear me. Type a 1. I need just more than one person. Type a 1 just to make sure. Okay. I don't know what the issue is with that. I apologize, guys. For some reason, I had to leave the stage and rejoin it for the audio to start working again. So that was really, really, really weird and annoying, and I apologize for that. So, um, okay. So, hello, friends. Thank you for joining. So, obviously, this is going to be a debate: atheism versus, well, we could say naturalism versus creationism. And mostly, to be honest with you, who I'm looking to discuss with are atheists, professed atheists. And if you are a professed atheist, please feel free to put your hand up and we can put you on stage and we can have a discussion. But there is one thing I want to do before we even start doing that is there's just a couple short videos as an intro on YouTube that I want to find that I found that I want us to watch, and it's basically on DNA and RNA, and so these videos total will take probably about 10 minutes to watch, but it's actually very, very how should I say, important to the discussion, very central to the discussion. So let me go ahead. I'm going to get them going. I'll share my screen. I would ask that you just please watch it with me. And then when that's over, I'm going to see if there's atheists in here who want to talk because there are some questions I've got to ask. And I want to know what your answers are to them. So now that we got all this going, first of all, I do want to let you know I am streaming live right now. I'm streaming on my YouTube studio, which is the number 4 Mormons followed by the number 1. And then also I'm streaming on my Rumble channel, which is number 4 and Mormons. So everything that's going on here is being recorded. But let me go ahead and get that going. I'm going to share my stream. I'm going to mute myself while it's going so you don't hear me in the background. But there are 2 videos I think are really important. And so let's go ahead and do it. Yes, Gov? Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to share my Rumble screen. And let's see here. Actually, let's just go ahead and do. I'm going to share another one really quick here. Okay, so here we go. And oops, that's the wrong stream. Come on now, work with me. It was working in the past. I'm sorry, I've had a rough days. Just in case you guys don't know, I have an issue with my heart. So I did not get much sleep last night. So my voice is a little weak right now. Okay, that's the one I want. That's the one I want. Okay, so let's go ahead and watch this. I'm going to go ahead and mute myself while doing this. But let's just go ahead and watch this and see what it has to say.
This special molecule contains all the information needed to not only... DNA is the most useful instruction manual in the world. This special molecule contains all the information needed to not only make your body, but keep it running all your life. And DNA does this job in every living organism that we know of so far. But it's even wilder than that. Within those organisms are cells, trillions of cells in your case, that each need their own copy of the instruction manual. That's a lot of toner. And the manual is massive. If you were to print out the roughly 3 billion letters of the genetic code stored in your DNA, they would fill hundreds of thousands of pages. You've got the most robust technical library in the world inside of your body. Cells can read this manual cover to cover, but for nearly all of scientific history, we couldn't. Until 2022, when building on many decades of progress, scientists finally produced the first complete sequence of the human genome. That means that they were able to document, in order, the entire genetic code that makes a human body. This major breakthrough could help us understand all kinds of things, like what makes us similar to and distinct from other species, what makes some people respond differently to certain medications, and how can we treat diseases like cancer more effectively. Hi, I'm Dr. Sammy, your friendly neighborhood entomologist, and this is Crash Course Biology. Woof. So that was some pretty heavy stuff. Maybe some theme music could lighten the mood? So let's begin with what DNA is made of. Nucleotides, which are molecules that consist of 3 parts: a sugar molecule, a phosphate group made from bonded phosphorus and oxygen atoms, and one of 4 possible bases, which all contain nitrogen. We'll get more into these nucleotide bases in just a moment, but first, check this out. A bunch of these nucleotides link up in a conga line to form DNA's famous double helix shape. It looks kind of like a twisted ladder. The rails on either side are the sugar phosphate backbones, named because they form the backbones of DNA, and they're made of chains of alternating sugar and phosphate molecules of the nucleotides. If you compared these two sugar phosphate chains side by side, you'd see that the one on the left starts with the phosphate, and the one on the right starts with the sugar. It's like one chain is upside down. Biologists call these anti-parallel strands, and you'll see how this mismatch creates some shenanigans a little later. The rungs of this twisty funhouse ladder are formed by DNA's nucleotide bases, which connect to the sugars in the backbones. And when it comes to making DNA, your cells have 4 bases to choose from. The 2 largest are adenine and guanine, or A and G for short. The 2 smallest are thymine and cytosine, or T and C. In a healthy strand of DNA, a big base always connects with a small one, using weak chemical bonds called hydrogen bonds. To get even deeper, again, in a healthy strand of DNA, because of their structure, adenine always bonds with thymine, and guanine always bonds with cytosine. A common way to remember this pairing is apples grow on trees, and cars go in the garage. So A goes with T, and C goes with G. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. Your cells use these bases, A, T, C, and G, to store information. In fact, these 4 letters make up the whole alphabet of your genetic code. The specific order they fall into is what allows your DNA to make you a human and not another animal like a chimpanzee. Throughout your DNA, these letters are repeated over and over again in different combinations that form a message more than 3 billion bases long. Just 4 letters in countless combinations. All of this is packed up into chromosomes. Chromosomes are chains of DNA molecules that are coiled up tightly around special proteins that help them fit inside the nucleus or control center of each of your cells. And like I said at the top, almost every cell in your body has a complete version of this code. So that means that when you make new cells, and your body is always making new cells, they need a copy too. That's where DNA replication comes in. It's where the structure of DNA really shines. And all these details, the base pairs, the twisting ladder, they aren't random. They all fit together in a precise way that makes DNA replication possible. At the beginning of this process, an enzyme, or a substance that helps trigger a chemical reaction, splits the DNA ladder in half. It breaks the hydrogen bonds connecting the base pairs and separates the 2 strands of DNA. Now get ready. Your cell is about to turn these half strands into 2 complete strands of DNA. And the amazing thing is, it already has all the instructions it needs thanks to the specific order or the code of all of those base pairs. DNA replication is done mostly by an enzyme called DNA polymerase. And when DNA polymerase rolls up to a half strand of DNA and sees a dangling adenine base, it knows exactly what to do. It needs to attach a thymine. Because remember, apples grow on trees. Then, if it sees a cytosine hanging out on that half strand, it knows to attach a guanine, because cars go in garages. So to copy DNA, this enzyme travels up those half strands and adds the missing bases plus sugar phosphate backbones to complete the structure. At the end of it all, boom, you have 2 full strands of DNA ready to go into new cells. Each new piece of DNA has just 1 strand that's newly constructed, pulled together from nucleotides that were floating around inside your body, and a second strand that came directly from the old molecule. So DNA replication is considered semi-conservative because the original strand of DNA is kept partially the same in the new molecule. And this is part of what makes DNA so useful. With just 1 strand, half a DNA molecule, cells have all the information they need to make more DNA molecules. For a closer look at how this works,
Okay, guys, are you still with me? Did I lose you? um, there's a reason I'm going through all this. Now, you notice that we focused on information. So for DNA, we had the 4 letters A, G, C, T. There is actually one more thing that I want to share with you. And I want to see if you can detect the similarities in it. So, I believe this is it right here. Yep, okay. Well, for some reason, it isn't showing up. Ah, here we go. Okay. All right, take a look at that with me, please. And tell me what you see there. Tell me what you see. Can you guys hear me okay? Can you hear me okay? Take a look at that screen there that I just posted up. All right. So what does that screen say? What does it say? Can you read that to me? What is that? And if you into computer sciences, programming, it's code, right? This is one of the earliest forms of code. It's called assembly language, which is just one step up from actual machine language. Now we know with computers, just like with electricity, it just works on a switch. Either you turn something on or off. That's just basically how a computer works. So a 0 is off and a 1 is switched on. So when you look down at the basics, that's all it is. But for a computer to know how to do that, it needs something to tell it to do that. So for example, in this picture here of code, this is assembly. This is basically the second lowest level of language that you can use. And we're going through all of this, all these different sections, right? All these commands, all these different little things. So what it does is it's going through whatever operating system like Windows, Linux, Apple, whatever it is, even your phone. So what's its ultimate purpose? It just wants to print out this one thing. Hello world. That's it. So I'm going to go ahead and stop. So why am I bringing that up? Why am I bringing up DNA? And why am I bringing up computer code? There's two things that they both have in common. They both have a language, right? They both have a code, both full of information. But there's also another thing that they all have in common, which is we have to be able to interpret that code, that language, for it to make sense to us. All right. Just in that, 5-minute long video on just the basics of DNA, and I talked about endless combinations, self-replication. DNA is basically, it's what makes us who we are. Basically, every cell has a DNA strand in it, and it's huge. DNA can also repair itself. So it's a language, just like that code was. So my question is to the atheist. If everything is from naturalism, nothing was created. Okay, first of all, where did that code come from? And second, what taught naturalism to read that code? So, are there any atheists that want to come on the stage and discuss this with me? If so, please raise your hand. Is there anyone who wants to discuss this with me? Okay. Yo, looks like you're live. I can't even read your name. Can I call you Jimmy? Is that all right?
Yeah, that's fine. Hold on, let me put my earpiece on.
Sure.
Something's wrong with my audio. All right, can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah. What was the question again?
Okay. So the question is the two things that we had in common, the two videos that I showed. One was on the DNA. It's basically code made up of 4 letters, A, G, C, and T. Comes in all different combinations. It's what makes us what we are. And then also I showed assembly language code, which basically it was a very low level code, instructions to just print out the phrase "Hello World." So the question comes from, if there is no God and everything is from naturalism, I assume you're an atheist, correct? That's who I'm asking. Okay. So 2 questions actually. First of all, where did that code come from? And second, how did nature by itself understand to translate those codes into something useful?
Well, I want to address the first question first. The second one I don't entirely understand. So the first question is, where did the DNA come from as far as the language?
No, I'm talking about the actual language itself. So I'm not talking specifically DNA. That's why I showed DNA and then computer code. What I'm talking about
Mhm.
is within DNA, even within language ourselves. If someone spoke to you, I don't know if you can understand uh, Arabic or something like that. I can't. But if someone spoke to me like that, they're speaking a language, but I wouldn't understand a word they're saying. It would sound like gibberish to me. But it's an actual code. It's a language. It's something that someone can understand. So this DNA, it comes, the 4 letters. It comes in all these different combinations. It basically defines who we are. So where did this, I'm going to call this language, come from? How did it get created?
What do you mean by get created? Like, you mean how did
How,
it come about?
yeah,
Like, why does it exist?
how did it come about? How did it come into existence?
Uh, I'm not sure. I haven't really looked too much into biology, but if I had to assume, I would assume over some natural process
Well, yeah, and this
over time.
isn't necessarily just biology. I'm talking about actual codes, languages, understanding. I mean, we can even go down to, like I just mentioned before, the different languages that human beings speak. Okay. I'm talking about language itself. If we look at this, it's not a biology thing, it's a language thing. It has the exact same thing in common as computer code. Um, it is a set of
Okay, so
instructions for something to understand.
okay, I get what you're saying, but I'm trying to understand the use of the word language here. So when you say we have language, and when you say code and DNA has language, what's the distinction between our language and the language between code and DNA? If you're saying code and DNA is similar, I'm confused at how our language is also similar.
Okay, so when we look back at that first video, I don't know if you saw the entire part of it, if it was coming through clear, but the guy was
Hmm.
talking. He was talking about how the different combinations, basically those 4 letters, A, G, C, and T, define things. From cells, how it differentiates us from. He used, for example, a monkey or another creature. It can even affect mutations. It can affect hair color, eye color, but it's a code. And for me, as my background is as a computer programmer, I worked in IT. So code and language for me is the exact same thing. All it is, code and language, it's a set of instructions that something understands and can process, and we can make sense out of it. So a language is a code. You talk about ciphers; they're a code, but they're also a language. Um, so this is DNA. These 4 letters in it, A, G, C, T, that come in these multiple combinations, which is huge. It's a language that came about from where, from what, and why? Where did it come from?
Yeah, so I think in order for me to answer that question, I would have to fully understand as like I get how you're using the word language, but when you say our language in terms of human age, or even if we use the ATCG in biology, these are just, I guess, representation
Well,
of the properties of certain things within the DNA. It's a language, but it seems as if you're trying to say that it seems like when you say it's a code, you, like at that point, like I don't know if you're just talking about the language or the actual properties themselves. I'm confused because if you're just talking about like the titles they have, then obviously like we made it up.
Okay, so let me just look at the text really quick, the text channel, okay? I'm just going to type in
Mm-hmm.
I'm just typing in gibberish. That means absolutely nothing, right?
Correct.
That's just me just hammering away on the keyboard. It means absolutely nothing. All right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm using the exact same words or the exact same letters, but I've got them put them in a certain format, and we can read what that says, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it suddenly makes sense. Now, the
Yeah, to
same.
me, yeah.
Okay, well, to anyone who speaks English, I mean, if you can read and speak English, that would make sense. So I'm assuming I'm speaking with an English speaking audience. Um, so when we go to DNA, which is the building block, it is the instruction for life, for all life, from even single cells all the way up to human beings and any other living creature on the earth. It has DNA in there, and it has the we gave them the letters A, G, C, T. That's just a representation of the four different, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, that'll make easier sense for you, but it's four different properties of the DNA. It's a four
Mm-hmm.
different properties of the language, just like the four, we have 24 letters in the English alphabet. There's four letters in the DNA alphabet. All right. So we'll just go by the AGCT or whatever. That's what science has commonly given them. But it's through a different combination of those that different properties come about. How certain cells are formed, how, like I said, all the traits are made. That's what I'm talking about as far as a language. A language is a code, a way to communicate. Um, does that make more sense what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Okay. So that's part one of the question. The second part is, where did the ability come from through naturalism to be able to interpret that? Why couldn't it be, that first stuff that I just typed out, which was just plain gibberish? How come that is just in naturalism gibberish? But if you put down a certain set of instructions of DNA instead of gibberish, it'll mean something. How does naturalism know the difference between gibberish and, oh, this actually means something? Where did information come from? So my ultimate question boils down to this. We're talking about language, which is ultimately information. Where did information come from via naturalism?
Complexity over time.
But over time, but we're talking from the beginning. So let's give me an answer. I mean, we're
Wait,
talking
like how?
about a single
Wait, when you
cell
say the
here. Talking about a
when you say the beginning, like what do you mean by the beginning?
Okay, so what do you believe in? Do you believe in the Big Bang? Do you believe in evolution?
I mean, yeah, evolution is a fact, and the Big Bang. I guess I can use that model. Why not?
Okay, I'm just trying to get an understanding where you're at, because I don't want to be putting words in your mouth. Do you believe in
Hmm.
let's go down to evolution. Do you believe in evolution? Uh,
Yeah,
Everything started from a single cell and moved on from there. Do you agree with that?
I accept it.
Okay,
Why not?
you accept it. Okay, within that single cell there was DNA. There was that DNA strand, and it had all that information in it, and it had it in a particular order. It wasn't just AGCT over and over again. It was a different combination of all this stuff. But if you look at a cell, it's a very complex thing, and it had the DNA strand that told the cell exactly how to work, how to repair itself, how to reproduce. It had all of that information. So my question is, when that first single cell happened, where did that information come from? I understand through evolution, when we talk about the biology, people say, different enzymes combine together to form this initial cell and all this kind of stuff. But my question is, where did the information for the DNA come from? How did just mashing different elements together all of a sudden create information?
I don't know, but I mean, like it just seems like you're asking where does the complexity of DNA come from?
Well, it's not, no, I'm asking more about information, is what I'm talking about. Information. Because when you and I were talking right now, okay, and we're both using words that we can both understand. But if someone from a different language is listening to us, we would be speaking gibberish. They wouldn't be able to understand what you and I are saying. But we are using words, which we can call code or something else, but it's a language to communicate an idea, information back and forth, right? So the code, the four letters that we've given DNA, okay, that's the same. That is a language within itself, and it uses it to communicate, to do what needs to be done, to define properties, to heal itself, to mutate, to basically tell the organism how to operate. So my question isn't focused on DNA. My question is focused on information. That's why I wanted to that's why at the beginning I showed the video on DNA, and also the video, the screenshot on the computer programming. They're both languages. They're both doing something. But unless you understand exactly what they're saying to us, it means gibberish. So there has to be information, there has to be knowledge. So my question is more based on not DNA, but information. Where did information come from? The ability to understand and to interpret, instead of it being something gibberish, something that makes sense.
I don't know.
Well, that's something we gotta kind of figure out, though.
I mean, yeah, but like, so I understand what you're saying, but when you use the word interpret, like, what exactly are you referring to that's interpreting things within DNA? That's what I'm confused about.
Okay, so I'll talk to you in a second, Cracked. We can go ahead and rewatch that DNA video again if it'll help. But we know that
No,
when
no, we don't have to. It's just I need to know like
okay,
how
so
the terms are being used.
basically when DNA, when those certain the four letters A G C T, when they're put down in a certain order, okay, and a combination, they're read by the RNA, and it interprets it. It understands what the order is, what the instructions are. It's like an instruction manual. Okay, this is what this code is saying. That means I need to do this. I need to do this with the molecules and the proteins. So it's an instruction. It's a code. It's information. I don't know how to explain it any different other than it is a code book. It is a set of instructions that makes sense to the natural world. It gives off information, and based off of that information, based the way that the DNA itself is arranged, it causes something to happen. A
Right.
mutation is, for example, we would say DNA either being read improperly or not put together properly, correct?
Sure.
Okay. So when it's acting regularly, when it's repairing itself, because our body regenerates, how many millions of cells every single day? We get that
Hmm.
information from DNA. So that's what I'm talking about, is that information, and it comes from that code, which is how the DNA strand itself is organized and how it's being read. So that's what I'm talking about. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, it'll do. Yeah.
Hmm?
Yeah.
Okay. So in a naturalistic viewpoint, I would need to know, from a naturalism where everything has happened by chance, how did not just this code, this language, let's call it a language or whatever works best for you, come about, but where did the ability to interpret it and read it as a language and understand it as a language and act upon it come from? Information. So, for example, when I showed you that computer program that just said "Hello World," there was a bunch of things written down, and when that it gets compiled, when it gets processed by the computer knows exactly what to do with it, and it prints out hello world. But that didn't come about naturally. A human being had to create that process. So how did naturalism, which means something without any outside influence, it just happened through random events, how could it create information like that?
I mean, so the first answer I gave didn't do complexity over time. Does that not answer?
You would have to go into much deeper. You'd have to really explain yourself on that complexity over time, because information, we're talking about knowledge, interpretation, information itself. I mean, that doesn't really do anything about complexity over time. You can put
Wait,
it.
I don't see how it doesn't. So when you say information itself, are you like in other words, are you referring to the nature of reality? Is that what you're referring to?
No, no, no. It's just like reading a book. Okay, I can put a book together and fill it with a bunch of words. I don't know if you ever read War and Peace. Please don't. It'll put you to sleep. It put me to sleep. Um, but it's a book. It's very long and boring, but it tells a story, which is what the DNA code is basically doing, is telling a story. But for me to be able to even read that, I have to understand exactly what it's saying. So there's more than just a code, there's also this understanding. So how can you, talking about complexity over time? Okay, I can
Mhm.
say that would answer half of the question of where the code came from, but it doesn't answer the other half of how did nature, randomness, understand that to have meaning. How can complexity over time cause that to happen?
I don't I don't know how to answer that question. I'm sorry. Probably have to swap me out for crack, but I can't answer that.
Okay.
I don't know.
I'm not
Yeah.
uh, okay. I'm not trying to insult you or anything like that, but I think this is something that's
Oh
important.
no, you good.
Um,
Yeah, I definitely think about it. I don't
for me,
know much about.
yeah, for me,
Yeah.
as obviously I'm a Christian. For me, I believe
Mhm.
that there is an author, someone who wrote that and gave that information out there. I think if you're going to stick with naturalism and saying that, this is just my personal opinion. I'm not preaching to you. This is where I come from. This is my understanding of it. Um, I believe that there is an author, someone who wrote the book, but also gave the ability for us to understand what was written. Um, when you're going by just pure random chance, um, you've got two things you got to take into consideration: how the code came about in the first place, but second, how can we even understand it? I mean, it could be it's a bunch of gibberish until you have an understanding. If someone speaks to me in Hindu, they may be speaking, making perfect sense to themselves. I have no idea what they're saying. It sounds like gibberish to me. So there's two parts to it that has to be answered. And I think that's something that should be taken into account. That's just my personal opinion on it. And please correct
It's
me if you.
definitely it's definitely reasonable. It's fair. So it seems as if you're only targeting the atheists that hold to naturalism.
Yeah, I'm talking. This is for atheists. And by the way, that's not me calling it. That's referencing a scripture verse. But this is for atheist streams, not someone who holds on to another religion or something else like that. This is for someone who's into pure naturalism, that things happen by, you know, random chance. Everything, there's a naturalistic explanation. So, for example, the quote that I used um, came from Richard Dawkins. Okay, you know who he is. He's a very famous atheist. He says, "I have," and this is a direct quote from him. "I have no explanation for complex biological design. All I know is that God isn't a good explanation, so we must wait and hope that somebody comes up with a better one." So I'll go ahead and copy and paste this into chat. The point being is, if God, and I'll just go at this point, I'll just say deity, I'll say higher power, I'll say intellectual design. I won't even go on Christianity. I'll just talk about without a creator, he's already taking out any part of any creation at all whatsoever. He's talking about pure naturalism. So naturalism has to be able to answer those two questions about, first of all, the information and the ability to understand it without it being gibberish.
Okay. Uh, it's pretty interesting. I really appreciate it. So before I drop back down, I know Crack wants to come up. If I was to go look into something, should I look into the nature of language, or like what would you suggest for me to look into?
Well, I would look into logic. I mean, how can something that comes about randomly, how can it answer? How can it create? I mean, language, in my opinion, I don't know if you agree with this or not, but to me, if I look at the rest of the animal world, one of the things that defines, separates human beings from the rest of the animal kingdom is, first of all, our huge, our ability to really communicate ideas. We philosophize over things. I mean, we're talking about right now is philosophy, right? We can, we have religions, we have political debates, we have all these different ideas, we have all these different languages that, even if we compare it to, chimpanzees or dolphins or something like that, where they have a little bit, but they don't have that much. And, just the basic animals, mostly what we hear is grunts and, whatever. But when it comes to us, we have the ability to not only write down something, but also to repeat it back. So, for example, there's a movie that I really enjoyed. It's called The 13th Warrior. Antonio Banderas is in it, and it's about Vikings. And it's an older one. It came out in the 1990s. It's kind of gory, but I like Viking stuff. But in it, the Viking chief asked Antonio Banderas, who he played the role of a Muslim, he says, "Can you draw words and repeat them back? Can you draw sounds specifically? Can you draw sounds and repeat them back?" And Antonio Banderas did that by, he wrote down, the Muslims saying about, there's only one God and Muhammad is his prophet, and he read it back to him. There's no other animal that can do that. So that's what separates us. So what I would ask you to look into would be to, where did that ability of information come from? Why is it limited only to us? If it's just complexity developing over time, I think that could answer half the question, but it doesn't really answer our understanding, because DNA isn't something that we created. That DNA created us. That came before us. So I think that would be something to look into if you want to stick with naturalism, because there's got to be something more to it than just random chance. So I'm not trying to be
Okay.
preachy.
Well,
I'm not trying to be preachy, man. I, believe it or not, I was an atheist at one time. So this is one of the things that stumped me. But I would definitely take
I,
a good look at this.
oh no, you good. I just want to see what you was coming from. That's all. I'm gonna drop back in the guest section. I think Crack might be able to answer your question. I want to
Okay,
see what he has to say.
sounds good. All right, I'll invite him
All
up.
right. All right. Appreciate it.
Hey, thank you for talking.
Oh yeah.
Hey, Crack, thank you for waiting so long. I appreciate your patience. So you heard the
No
dialogue.
problem.
What's your answer, my friend?
So you talked about how does the body know what to do with DNA, what to do with these four letters, right? I think like almost everything in biologics, it is working it through chemical substances.
Okay.
It's through different fabrics that I don't know how to say it, sorry. So the body sees, okay, that's this substance, and if I detect that this substance is there, I need to do this. You know what I'm you know what I mean?
I hear what you're saying, and I think I know what you're saying. But my question is, how does your body know? So how does your body know to do that? So when it's reading that DNA code through the even through chemicals, how does it know that okay, I see this code and it's in this direct procedure, and it's actually the
Well,
DNA that causes the chemicals to react. So how does it know just by looking at that code? That's my question.
I mean, you already kind of said it through chemical reactions. Chemical substances react with each other, and
Um,
yeah,
but okay,
that's basically it.
it's not just a chemical reaction. This is dictating. The DNA dictates how the chemical reactions happen. That's the issue. So, okay, for example, you know what mRNA is, right? That's what the COVID.
No, not really.
That's what the COVID vaccines were made out of. Pfizer and the Moderna ones. So you have DNA, and then you have the mRNA. So the DNA is the instructions. The mRNA is what reads that and basically gets the chemical reactions to happen in the body. So it's a set of instructions, and then you have the mRNA that reads it, that says, okay, this is what the DNA is saying. So now I need to get the chemicals to do this. So the issue still stands before the chemical reactions can even happen. It has to know what the instructions are and how to get those chemical reactions to happen. Like if it was going to happen through hold on, my 24-pound cat just got on my lap, which means he thinks I've been talking too much. Hope sit down, buddy. Um, come on, dude. Anyway, the thing is yeah, it does result in chemical reactions. That's true. But before it can get to that, there are a set of instructions that it has to read and interpret before it can cause those chemical reactions to happen. It's the same thing when you look at that computer code or the hello world thing. You can think of all that code as chemical reaction or the hello world to be the chemical reaction, but it had all that steps it had to go through for that to happen. It had to understand, it had to realize what was going on. Come on, Cat, you are not helping me here. So I don't know if this is making sense to you or not. Here, I am dealing with an issue right now, and
So either we need to go one step deeper, like I don't know if it's exactly that way, and I don't know if you wanted to say it like this, but I think you meant to ask how do chemical reactions know what reacts into what, right?
yeah,
So why does
okay. For example,
so you're go ahead.
let me ask you it this way. Let's talk about a single cell, okay? And let's say part of that single cell it got damaged and it needs to repair itself. So to get that information, the information on how to repair, and it could be any type of damage, the DNA strand within that cell will tell it how to repair itself. So my question to you is, how does that cell, whatever's inside the cell, the proteins and all that stuff, how does it first of all diagnose that it has been damaged? And second, how does it diagnose or find the instructions to fix that damage?
I can answer that because I am not a biologist, and I too haven't had that topic, or I haven't gone that deep in school yet.
Okay.
But if even scientists don't know how to answer that, I'm confident that they will find out in the future. That it just needs a lot more research and stuff. We we have started researching on a topic like 200 years ago. That's not a long time, So if we wait another 200 years, maybe we'll be able to answer that question
Okay.
through science.
Okay. So, and I'm not saying this, please don't take this as an insult, but basically what you just told me is you have faith that eventually the answer is going to
That's ex-
happen. You have faith, which means you believe in that it's going to happen. We may not know it now, but you believe it will happen sometime in the future, right?
um, right. But you need to note that I'm not atheist, but I'm agnostic. So, I think that it's definitely possible that a higher power is the author and that he has done that. But on this topic, I think it's much more likely that it's a scientific explanation.
Okay. Um, well, to answer your question, this isn't just a biological thing. This actually is information. This is something that, if you look through evolutionary scientific journals on this, when I say evolutionary, I mean secular, non-creation journals. No one has an answer for it because it's the question is information. Where did Is not only do we have that code, like I said, we got that book in front of us, or we have that language. Like for example, I'm listening to you speak. You probably speak more than one language, right? Because I can hear kind of an accent.
Yes, I'm originally German and
Okay.
I'm quite good at English. I can speak a little bit of French too, but not much.
So if you said something to German to me, say something to German to me right now. I don't care. Just don't insult me. That's all I ask. Say something to me in German.
Hallo, wie geht's dir? Was hast du heute so gemacht?
Okay. What you said to me right then and there is, to me, made no sense at all whatsoever. But I know that to you, it made perfect sense. And what you said right there, just like in English, there is a code. It's like a layout of the sentence. There's information there. But I don't have the ability to interpret that information to know what you've said. So the question, science has to answer is, where does that information come from? That's the issue. The ability to interpret that information. And so you're an agnostic, so you're not a complete atheist. So I take that in there. You said there might be a higher power. My challenge to any atheist who, like I said, I'm live streaming, so not just talking to you guys in here, but really need to understand, really need to figure out how can naturalism, which is really, if you think about it, random processing, random processes, how can it create information? Information is something that isn't even physical. There is nothing physical about it at all whatsoever. It's almost like consciousness. There's nothing physical about consciousness. Scientists right now, they're still trying to figure out what consciousness is. They can see the electrons firing in the brains, but they still can't define what consciousness is. So, in the same thing, information is still ethereal. It's not materialistic at all. And that's, I think, is an issue that if we just go by pure naturalism, you're not going to come up with an explanation. It all goes back to what Richard Dawkins says. He says, look, I have no explanation for complex biological design. All I know is that God isn't a good explanation. The question is, how does he know that? So we must wait and hope that somebody comes up with a better one. Richard Dawkins just admitted to having faith. So it's not that I'm talking about biology. I'm talking about something that's not even physical. It's something ethereal. It's something out there. It's something that you can't touch. You can't breathe it. You can't eat it. You can't even smell it. None of our five senses can can interact with it other than we can talk. But still, the information, the ability to understand, to make sense of what's being said, that's something that's not physical. So how can the physical world create something that's not physical? That's the question I think that really needs to be answered.
Well, now I definitely understand what you mean, and I'm honest, I can answer it.
You don't understand, or did I lost you, or
I do understand, but I can't answer it. I'm honest.
okay. Well, thanks for being honest. So I would say, again, as I said with Jimmy, who was in here previously, for me as a Christian, but just someone who believes in someone who created, I believe that there's more to this life that we have than what's just physical, than what just our five senses tell us that's out there. I believe there is something much, much more to that, and I believe just the aspect of information alone um, gives that away. Because, like you said, I mean, how can we answer that? How can how can something physical create something that isn't physical? I guess that's basically it. Um, if there's something else you want to add, my friend, I appreciate it. I really appreciate you taking the time to get on stage with me and talking with me.
I think I don't have anything more to say.
Okay.
It was a nice conversation.
It was. I appreciate it. I wish there were more people here, to be honest with you. I think this is something that really needs to be talked about. Um,
Well, how late is it currently in the States?
say what?
How late is it currently in the States?
How is it currently in the States, in the United States?
How late?
Oh,
How
how?
late?
Oh, it's 3 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. So let's see. I think it's -8 GMT.
Okay, because it's 11 p.m. in Germany currently.
Okay. What's the I don't know if you know, but the majority of the server population, are they mostly over in Europe or in the United States? Do you know?
No, I think they're mostly in North America, but the yeah, I think the majority is in America, but the like, oh my god, I don't know how to say it. Sorry,
It's all right.
my
Hey,
English is broken currently.
you can speak three languages, man. You're smarter than I am, so don't apologize. um, I guess we can go ahead and end it now, but I think I want to talk about this later. Maybe we can get some more people. Maybe I'll try it earlier in the day, get some more people in there. I don't know why initially my sound wasn't coming through, but um, I thank you for your honesty, and you know, I think it should be something that should be looked into. At least from my point of view. Like I said, I wasn't always a Christian. I started out as an atheist, and then I became an agnostic. And it's questions like these that, for me, I can only speak for myself. I can't speak for anyone else. It tells me, what, there's something more out there than just the physical world. There are things out there that we can't taste or touch or manipulate, but exist.
Um, my that's my belief too, but there's no religion that really fits my belief, and I think I'm not smart enough to make up my own religion, so I'll just stay agnostic till I find a religion that really fits me,
Yeah. Um.
or till I uh maybe have fully um yeah, my English broken again.
It's all right. Are you looking for a religion, or are you just at a place? Are you at a place right now where?
Yeah, definitely. I'm looking for a religion, or maybe if I go deeper into Christianity or into the or into how do you say, oh my god. Yeah, maybe if I go deeper into other religions, I'll become Christian one day because I'll go deeper into Christianity, and find out, well, it is actually fitting my belief pretty well,
Mm.
but not currently.
You know, what I found, what was hard for me was I had to realize that some of the things that I believed were wrong, and I had to drop some of those beliefs. Um, because I think that's an issue that I think that's why there's so many different religions out there is we all have our own sort of beliefs, and you even have these small minuscule religions. We call them cults because they're like average of 10 people or something in there. But would you agree with me on this one question, on this one assertion, that there is truth, there can only be one thing that's true? Like, for example, 1 plus 1 is always going to equal 2. Would you agree with that?
I I'd say mostly.
Mostly.
Maybe there's maybe there's maybe the theorem of parallel universes is true, where 1 plus 1 does not equal 2.
All right, but from what
Maybe
we
it's true, maybe it's not.
know right now, what's been revealed to us, I mean, what we know, the knowledge base that we have right now, it's true, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's true.
um I sounds like it's really late there, so I don't want to keep you up. If you want to talk, if you have questions about
That's alright.
Christianity.
I'll stay up for like an hour, watch some videos with my mom, and then
Okay.
go to bed.
All right.
We've just came back from vacation today, and I've seen that there's a stage that would fit what I'm interested in right now, so I just joined in.
Okay. Well, I don't want to keep you from your mom and doing some videos, my friend. So, but if you want to talk again sometime, I'll try to do another stage soon, and hopefully we get more people in, and maybe listening to other people's ideas, maybe we'll come up with an answer that I've overlooked. But anytime you want to talk about Christianity, if you have questions about it, and I'm on or something, I'm more than happy to give you an answer as to why I believe what I do, um, and why I disagree with other things. I can give you my viewpoint. I can't speak for everyone, but I can definitely speak for myself. But I'm more than happy to answer any questions anytime you might have them.
Alright then, let's say goodbye to each other. Have a nice day.
All right, you too. Sleep well.
Thank you, you too.
All right,
Bye.
bye. Okay, so it looks like there's no one else. I'm gonna see if I can get anyone else on here. Okay, so let's see here. All right, we got a couple people here. Thanks for coming in. What we've been talking about with atheists, talking about information. Where did information come from? So I used for an example earlier. So Daniel, I'm talking about the topic right now. So I used two examples. I used DNA and I used computer code. Okay, so basically a language, and then our ability to understand that language. So, for example, in the computer code, I used assembly language, which is like almost the most complex language there is. Looks like Daniel left, and basically the question is, hi Nicodemus. Do you want to join on stage here? The link is. Hold on 1 second, really quick. I'm on that server right there. Anyway, so the question is where information comes from. how information is something that is not physical. It's not something that we can taste, touch, um, hear, or feel. But so, for example, a language. If someone spoke to me, I'm an English speaker. If someone were to speak to me in a different language, say Russian or German or French, what they're saying would make perfect sense to them, but to me would be completely. Um, okay, you're only here about the ping, so if you're not here for debate, then you can go ahead and leave. But basically, I wanted to know if anyone wants to talk to me about how can naturalism produce information? The ability to understand what's going on, to understand the code that's in DNA. Mark, do you want to talk about this at all? You're a Christian, so I don't think this really applies to you. Yeah, you agree. You agree. I was blessed to be able to speak with a atheist and agnostic, and got them thinking. So yeah, I'm looking more to speak if there's any Christians here. I mean, what are your thoughts? Do you have any thoughts that you want to add on it about as far as how can naturalism produce information? I'll open the stage up to a Christian if they want to come up here and talk about it. Um, okay. Well, thank you. Well, I guess I'm gonna go ahead then and end the event, and I'm gonna try this again because it was some really interesting discussion. So the next time I think I'm gonna host another one of these events and see if we can get more people talking. Do you know about what time of day people are more active on this server, so I can get more people involved? Okay, Nicodemus, I'll be there with you in a minute. I'm closing up here. 4 or 5 are pretty late at night. What time is it there for you now? Because right now for me, it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Don't worry about it, Nicodemus. I'll catch you on Skype. Okay. Um. Yeah, I'm in Mountain Standard Time Zone, so uh, like back east, like Massachusetts, Maine. Right now, it would be around 5 p.m. So I'm gonna go ahead and end the stream since we're talking about this stuff, but I'll still talk to you on the stage. So Nico Demas, I'll call you on Skype in just a second, but I'm gonna end the stream really quick because this is I don't need to stream this.